The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has come under fire for his recent remarks in Kaduna State. Atiku had, at the weekend, during an interactive session with the Arewa Joint Committee, allegedly said that Northerners needed someone of his stature and not a Yoruba or Igbo president. Reacting to this, Bayo Ononuga, Director, Media and Publicity of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council, says Atiku had resorted to ethnic jingoism in the face of imminent defeat at the 2023 election. According to him, Atiku's recent statement to the effect that northern Nigerians did not need a Yoruba or Igbo president was the worst expression of ethnocentric opportunism ever uttered by a former vice president. Joining us on this show this morning as we discuss the statement by the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party and the criticism the party is currently facing is Daniel Bwala, spokesperson for the Atiku Abubakar presidential campaign. Welcome to the morning show, Daniel Bwala. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Dr. Rufai and Dr. Abati and Mr. Rufai.
Well, very quickly, your presidential candidate is under fire, if I may use that expression. All the APC spokespersons have accused him of making divisive comments, provocative comments, of projecting himself as an ethnic and regional champion. And also yesterday in Kaduna, the candidate of the APC himself, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, threw a jab at him, reminding him that, well, look, what you said at the Arewa, Arewa Joint Committee meeting was not it. And he even added that it is payback time. Atiku Abubakar should just forget about the election because he has lost it already. He should come and queue up behind him and support him. After all, he helped him in 2007. What do you have to say to all of that?
Well, thank you for having me, and good morning to your listeners. Let me start from the last comment and then come back to the first. Well, the very fact of him suggesting that Mr. Atiku Abubakar should step down for him, I think is a conclusive proof that he knows that his only realistic chance of becoming president is if Atiku Abubakar is not in the context. That's why he's asking for a stepping down. But now that Atiku will not step down, then there is no contest. So this is answer to the first point by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The second one is that to make the case that after the statement was misconstrued or misinterpreted, you will see that it is only the All Progressives Conference or Congress that have gone to the market and tried to cry foul and give all manner of interpretations to it. People like the Labour Party and others have not looked at that. I think the Labour Party is more mature than APC in looking at the issues. You can imagine when he said Yoruba Lokun and Emi Lokun, if we try to make a mountain out of a molehill, that is ethnocentric if you go by that, because if you talk about the South, you have the Igbos and you have the people in the South side. In other words, you have South, you have South. When he said Yoruba Lokun. But the reason why we do not actually focus on these kinds of things is because, number one, we know these are not the issues confronting the Nigerian people. And therefore, focusing on what is non-essential and not important is getting distracted. In fact, that feeds to the narrative of, insulting the sensibility of Nigeria. You just analyze the flood and the situation in the Middle Belt. And you can imagine, instead of us discussing our policy issues around how we can tackle climate change and some of this problem, somebody is talking about a comment that was made. But let me even clear the comment. Atiku Abubakar was at Arewa House, a Northern Caucus meeting, where a question was put to him as an Arewa man on what he will do to the Arewa people. And remember, Atiku Abubakar is not the only Arewa in the contest. That is Kwankwaso. So Atiku needed to distinguish himself from Kwankwaso in the first place, because the question was, as an Arewa man, what will you do to the Arewa? In other words, how do you incorporate the interest of the Arewa people? And these things happen in America. I remember Joe Biden was also confronted by the Conference of the Catholics, because he is a Catholic, that how will you deal with abortion issues and some of the issues that the Catholics care about? Some of his responses were read out of context by the Republicans, and that they said he was trying to be here and there. Political seasons, you find that. But Atiku needed to distinguish himself from Kwankwaso. That was what informed the first comment, which he said that as a northerner, the average northerner needs a northerner that is pan-Nigerian. So in other words, distinguishing himself from Kwankwaso, meaning that although both of them are northerners, but he is a northerner that is a pan-Nigerian. And he laid out the reasons for saying that. But because it's also a contest where there are two other candidates who were also billed to address them, and they are not from the north, he needed to also balance what he was saying. And that's why he said, you also do not need an Igbo candidate, and you also do not need a Yoruba candidate. Let me just oppose this by the comment made by Peter Obi in a conference of, I think, bishops or Catholics, where he said it is time for the church to take back their Nigeria. If you take that to the market for subjective interpretation, then an average Nigerian will think, or a non-Christian will think that the insinuation suggests that the Nigerian has been hijacked by the Muslims or by the non-Christians, and that's why you're asking the Christians to take back Nigeria. But we as People Democratic Party, we never took that as an issue to take to the market. We are focused on the issues that confront Nigerians. We laid that one out in our manifesto. As they began to talk in Arewa House, they were even exposing themselves in the sense that all this while, it's not that they couldn't come out with manifesto, but because they were afraid they would be interrogated by the ferocious Nigerian media. So they waited for PDP to go to the market with their manifesto. Whatever criticisms that come to PDP, they would then model their manifesto to run away from that. But in all of these cases, that the strategy they adopted, they have been found wanting. So, for example, the Asiwaju factor in Arewa House, he was asked a very clear question: what will you do to climate change as a president? And we know that climate change is the concept in the world now, where there is a conversation for departure from those things that affect the greenhouse gases, fossil fuel, and all of that into renewable energy, everything green energy, green everything. When he was asked that question, it was an opportunity, if he ever had something serious, to lay out to them. But guess what his answer was? He said it is the simple way of dealing with climate change is to prevent the church rat from eating a poisoned Holy Communion. Honestly, APC is a joke. It was not long ago when he was asked similar question about how he was going to tackle insecurity during his own colloquium. I guess what he said as his security policy for Nigeria, to recruit 50 million Nigerians. If you put that into context, he's saying, in other words, to recruit the population size of Lagos, Kano, Port Harcourt, and 5 other states of the Federation, the youth, into the army. And his focus isn't about empowering them with arms, ammunition, training, and talk about technology. He said just be feeding them with cassava and agbado. You notice that People's Democratic Party, we didn't go to the market. That's why yesterday you heard him in clear terms. He said, they have warned me to stay on the script. In other words, unless he stays on the script, and whatever that meant, his natural flow of thought is inconsistent with the realities that the Nigerian people face. But what exactly is the script?
Okay.
Only God knows.
Okay, Daniel Bwala. I'll come back to that issue. A lot of people said that was bad rhetoric from a man that claims he's a unifier. And coupled with that, he's not been able to unify the party. And there's been a lot of flip-flops, even with your candidate leading up to the election. Daniel Bwala, you are a Christian. Deborah was killed. Your candidate made a tweet. Why did he delete his tweet? After some people came after him? What is going on here? So, and that's why people are talking about him not being unifier, playing ethnic politics by saying that to his people.
So I don't know which one from the range of things you said that you want me to answer, and I'll be willing to answer them.
Yeah, the fact that he's not unifying, like he claims he is a unifier, the fact that he's playing political card by saying, oh, you need an Arewa person. I mean, there were many other issues he could have talked about to pitch himself, not that tribe issue that everybody's trying to push away from and have a holistic one Nigeria. Secondly, why did he delete Deborah's tweets? Why?
Right. So there are actually not two. You mentioned four, but let me answer. The
Go
first
ahead,
one about unifier. About unifier. Atiku need not to even articulate the fact of him being an embodiment of unification of Nigeria. Atiku's family and blood, he has children, his blood, Igbos, his blood, Yoruba, forever while he remains on this earth. He can never be divested or divorce himself from the reality that the Yoruba blood and the Igbo blood runs through his veins by virtue of the offsprings that he brought to the world. And these individuals are freely and fully operating within the prism of rights responsibility. That is with respect to his family. With respect to Nigeria, I challenge you, Rufai, you are a good researcher. Go through your research and see if there be any politician in Nigeria who has demonstrated, both in his business life, in his political life, and in his personal life, that he interrelates, interconnects, and relate with the other parts of Nigeria more deeply and more strongly. And I will only conclude in that point by telling you, which was why when we went to the Southeast, it was only a rousing ovation that people kept giving to him, because every friend in that meeting, which he was pointing at, their relationship spanned 30 years, 25 years, his doctor over 30 years, his chef over 30, and they are Igbos. So anybody who wants to ride on this narrative against Atiku is going on a journey that is decided negatively even before he starts. The second point about unifying, I think you mentioned something about unifying the party. It is obvious by our activities that the party has moved and the party is unified as a common front. Each of the places we went, we had what we wanted, we achieved what we wanted, and the party is compact in spite of whatever people are saying, thinking, and that is how we will continue to go. Ultimately, the Nigerian people will prove whether we are good or whether we are not. With respect to Deborah, I am surprised, Rufai, that you're asking a question you have asked not less than 6 times, different people, and they have answered. I would have been happy if you point at one answer given which you felt was insufficient, and then I'll be able to answer. But to keep whipping a dead horse, to me, it is not consistent with, because before we start talking anything, you say your time has finished. So I would rather focus on those things that are
Daniel.
Excuse me, let me finish.
I've never asked you about Deborah, so don't say I've asked you. I've never asked you about Deborah's tweet here. So I'm asking you for the first time.
You have asked People's Democratic Party. It doesn't have to be me. In other words, that issue has been raised by Rufai and has been answered. So the point is, if Rufai is not satisfied, raise that part of the response that you get from the people to which you felt unsatisfied. And then I will need to clarify, or I'll give my perspective. But asking somebody who has moved from primary 1 to 2 to repeat exam question of primary 1, to me, is an exercise in futility.
Well,
with the greatest respect.
Daniel Bwala, can I come in here? 2 things. First,
yes, sir.
I saw you laughing heartily earlier on in reaction to what Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu said about offering, a church rite, poisoned Holy Communion with regard to climate change. Well, there are people who, in fact, are convinced that what he said was in order. Because if you look at that metaphor that he used yesterday, you will see that he's talking about the imbalance between rich countries and poor countries with regard to climate change. The International Panel on Climate Change says, okay, we have to keep greenhouse gas emissions within the range of 1.5 degrees centigrade. The question at various conference of parties meetings has been, okay, how do these poor countries who are victims of the emissions from these industrialized countries, how do they fund the mitigating measures to be taken? If you check President Muhammadu Buhari's speech before the United Nations General Assembly, he said more or less the same thing. If you check presentations by the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Osinbajo, he said more or less the same thing. And you recall that Tinubu went on to talk about financing and all of that. So we can't play politics with everything. I mean, I'm not speaking for you. Just wait. No, I have your own original question for you, but I've given you references that you can go and check. It's not a subject I'm just talking, from nowhere about. Now, second question I wanted to ask you is about this talk about violence yesterday at the PDP rally in Kaduna there was a big rally. And, the presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, complained about people attacking PDP supporters. Senator Bukola Saraki also said the same thing. What exactly happened? Because not only the PDP that is talking about violence and attack, the Labour Party has also talked about their supporters being attacked in Ebonyi, in Nasarawa, and also in Lagos. Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Obati. But of course, as a senior lawyer, that when in the practice of law, when a fresh issue is raised, there must be opportunity given to the other party to respond to it. You have raised first issue in the first point about context and references to Buhari, to Osibanjo, and a couple of others. I'm happy you did not make reference to somebody who is not outside of APC. So in other words, all of these things revolve around what they believe and their policy. So the answer to it affects all of them. Let me tell you why, whichever way you look at it, the comment of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is misplaced and out of order. First of all, that metaphor of a church rat, if you look at it, you can look at it from dictionary. It's about somebody who comes to church pretending to be holier than thou. That has no correlationship with Africa. Africa is not coming to the international community pretending to know climate change or pretending to be holier than the Western world. Completely out of order. Secondly, the church rat eating a poison Holy Communion has been held, number one, to be offensive to a demographics, because the place where he was responding to the question was not a church community Catholic Bishop Conference, it was Arewa. It would have been better for him to give a metaphor that resonates with the people. But in terms of contextual interpretation, let me tell you, Mr. Abati, and you captured it perfectly so, that the conference, the International Conference on Climate Change, is looking at a balance. The 1-point-something emission level limit that you're talking about is insofar as it relates to the advanced countries. But with the developing countries, what they are doing is that they are offering incentives for the developing countries to depart from carbon emission and the burning of the greenhouse gases, which was why one of Osibanjo was in the US earlier in the year. You heard the vice president of the US is talking about certain packages that they can give to Africa, and Africa will give up those habits, because climate change is one caused by a natural phenomenon, number two by habit of human beings. So you cannot come join that one with what Asiwaju said, completely out of order. I still maintain that with respect to that, he said that's why they say he should stick, because anytime he opens his mouth to talk about context, it has always been out of order. With respect to the second point, it is deeply troubling and worrying to Nigeria. In fact, we were going to issue a statement, because what happened in our very eyes in Kaduna, we are getting intelligence, is what APC has planned to do in strategic cities in the country that they believe are their stronghold, such as Kano, such as Lagos. They even talked about Port Harcourt, they talked about Borno, and I think 2 other states. What they intend to do is to apply this intimidating strategy, that when you come, they disrupt the meeting or they try to deny you the use of a venue. Look at how irresponsibly the Minister of Sport denied us the right to use a venue that just 1 week ago was given to Concoso. And this is no wonder their candidate may have avoided signing the peace pact. And we are calling on Nigerians and the international community to identify and profile individuals that investigation will point at and make sure that they deal with them decisively, because no democracy is free and fair until the participators or the players in the democracy are given the freedom to participate. What they are doing is deeply troubling. I'm even imagining by the time Peter Obi of Labour starts going to cities in Nigeria where it is the stronghold of APC, what would they do to him? You can even hear the governor of Kaduna saying, subliminal jab, that when I was in Anambra, he locked me up, but I have the control of garrison of soldiers, but I will not use it against him. These are inferences. These are statements that are suggestive of intimidation that lies ahead. But guess what? We are not prepared to be cowed by any individual. It is our right to participate in political process, and we will participate. They cannot hold Nigeria in bondage and say that there will not be free and fair election. You heard of their attempt to capture INEC. They wanted to remove the chairman of INEC. They wanted to hack into INEC server. Everything conceivable that they need to do to hold on to power. Any political party that fails to have in its ideology the concept of doing what is right is not a political party. It's a conspiracy to seize power or conspiracy to retain power.
We don't support any form of violence, and I stand with you to condemn any form of violence against the PDP and other political parties. But let me take you back to the facts. I have never, and you can provide me a tape if you have, asked any PDP surrogate about the Deborah incident, deleting the tweets. And let me prove facts to you. Atiku Abubakar deleting the tweet and Deborah incident happened between the 13th, the 12th to the 14th of May. You were officially declared as a PDP surrogate on the 29th of July. There's been a month interval, so we have never spoken about the issue. And the issue
I never said you asked me.
Hang on a minute. You said I might have asked other PDP surrogates. I have never. And I challenge you. Hang on a minute. PDP spokesperson or anybody. And I challenge you to bring out a video that I asked anybody. I was speaking for the PDP here about the tweet deleting Atiku saga. So it's you I'm asking for the, hang on a minute please, for the first time. And I'll be able to prove to you, and there are empirical evidence there, that it's a month after he had that incident in May, you became a surrogate for him in July, that thing happened. We need a definitive take on it. You know why we need a take on it? Because people are raising it as issues. As an objective media outlet, we amplify the voices of people. I ask you once again, Daniel Hassan Bwala, why did your presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar delete that tweet condemning the death of Deborah at first, after some pressures were on him?
Thank you. First of all, the stats you gave about specific dates are totally inconsequential with the question, because one, I never said you asked me. I made it clear you asked people in PDP. I never used the word surrogate. And let me correct the concept of surrogate. You see, although the definition may give a different meaning, surrogates are not spokesmen. Spokesmen aren't surrogate. Spokesmen are spokesmen. Surrogates are non-affiliates in terms of either contract or political participation with a party or individual. They serve like consultants. So if somebody is not a member of PDP, or somebody is in the business community, but PDP engages him to surrogate for him, then you can rightly classify that person as surrogate. A spokesman for a presidential candidate, I don't know, because I followed that in the US, that argument around that. He's not a surrogate, he's a spokesman. If he's a member, he's not a surrogate, he's a member of the party. He's part and parcel of the party that shares the same ideology. Surrogate means they are contracted. That is what with respect to that. Then with respect to the deleting of the tweet, again I said, and it bears repeating, the question was asked, Atiku has answered. If Nigerians are not satisfied, they will express that at the poll. I add no further comment to that.
Okay, Daniel Bwala, do you have any fears or concerns that the statement made by the PDP candidate Atiku Abubakar at the Harawa joint session is likely to affect his chances, his popularity, his acceptance down south? Because you recall, when Nyesom Wike returned with the other governors, his allies, from their trip to Spain, he said, well, we're in the digital age. In case that was something that was manipulated, well, you could understand better that if indeed Atiku Abubakar said, oh, Northerners, vote for me, don't vote for Yoruba and Igbo. If indeed he said it, Governor Wike said, then the PDP and himself owe Nigerians an apology. If he said so, will he apologize that he didn't mean it? Because we have not heard directly from him. We have only heard people like you twisting and somersaulting over what he said.
Dr. Abate, I take exception to that. I don't somersault. I express my opinion.
Okay.
Let me
not in jest.
Yes, sir. Yes, I know. I know you're a good man. What I mean is, when that comment was made, I'm sure that Governor Wike was watching Real Madrid and Barcelona. He traveled to watch Real Madrid and Barcelona. And that was when this thing happened. And although his Real Madrid team won, but it does not mean that what he said is correct. First of all, if you're looking at apology, I think he needs to apologize to the party first, because if this thing had happened in a state where a member of the party and a stakeholder just goes to the air without first conferring with him, he will term that as insubordination, disobedience, or whatever name. You see, one thing about politics is the way you want it at the national level, you have to also, the way you want it at the state level, or the way you are demanding it at the state level, you have to also obey that at the national level. And thirdly, as an aggrieved member of the party to which we all acknowledge he has his right to grievances and he has his right to expression, and that he keeps saying it, what he's saying, what he said yesterday, and what he probably will keep saying until he changes his mind, will not come as a surprise, I don't think only to us, but even to the Nigerian people, because he has, in recent time, based on his decision, been saying things that are suggestive, that he does not, agree with what we are doing. And he has said things worse than this, so this isn't a surprise. As to the apology, I honestly will tell you, Mr. Abati, with the greatest respect, I do not think there is anything to apologize to the Nigerian people, because the context has been given by Paul Ibe, his media man, who issued a statement to that effect. We have also responded to various questions from the Nigerian press. With respect to that, we put a context. I am doing that today. And in fact, Atedo Peterside, who is a known supporter of Peter Obi, had also clarified issues. And I think there is another APC member who also clarified the issue and said, let's move on and not focus on that. So on the premise of all of this, I do not think there's any basis for apology. What we are concerned about is, how do we deal with the flood? How do we deal with insecurity? What is our position on the economy? And we're happy to engage with Nigerian people on that.
All right, real quickly, what's the outcome like as regards the Spanish talks? In less than 30 seconds, please. Spanish talks.
Spanish talks. Well, Real Madrid won. So what that means is that his problems are resolved and he will soon be with us in the campaign.
Okay.
But don't forget that Drake lost £500,000 because he placed a stake that Barcelona will win, Arsenal will win, and he was going to get 2.5. He lost. But thank God Wike won. And if indeed he plays a stake, then that means we are good to go with him.
Hala Madrid. All right, thank you so much.